Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to give the floor to Miss Rebecca Supriya Shah from Divya Shanthi Association to the second plenary session.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm going to ask you to please find your seat or any seat and sit down. We are about to begin. Welcome to this afternoon's plenary session, which is entitled Identifying and Embracing Values Shared by the World's Major Religions and Civilizations. There has been a slight change of plan due to a pressing engagement. The Minister of Religious Affairs has to go first, and therefore he will present first, and our keynote speaker, Professor Marianne Glendon, will present after him. So if you could all sit down, I will begin. The Honorable Yaqut Cholil Qoumas is the Republic of Indonesia's Minister of Religious Affairs. He is also former chairman of Gerakan Pemuda Ansor, the world's largest young adults organization, and a primary vehicle for the grassroots mobilization of Nahdlatul Ulama's tens of millions of followers. All Ansor members belong to Barisan Ansor Serabang Guna Nahdlatul Ulama, or Banser, an active militia force. During his tenure as chairman, 2015 to 2020, the Honorable Minister gained renown as a guardian of Indonesia's unique brand of inclusive, multi-religious, and multi-ethnic nationalism. Minister Qoumas is also co-founder of Humanitarian Islam and the Center for Shared Civilizational Values, which serves as the R20 Permanent Secretariat. I welcome you, sir.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan, Rahayu. Kenalkan, salam ini salam khas Indonesia yang berasal dari 6 agama besar yang ada di sini. First of all, I'd like to introduce you that those greetings are typical greetings from the 6 religions in Indonesia. Para hadirin yang berbahagia, saya ingin membuka pidato saya dengan sebuah metafora yang dikemukakan oleh seorang pemikir sosial, Zygmunt Bauman, pada tahun 1996. Bauman menulis sebuah metafora bahwa globalisasi itu menghasilkan 2 jenis kelompok manusia dengan nasib yang sama sekali berbeda, yaitu turis dan gelandangan. Keduanya sama-sama bergerak, bermigrasi dalam globalisasi, tetapi dalam pengalaman yang sama sekali berbeda, bahkan bertentangan. Wisatawan adalah analogi untuk orang kaya yang mengalami globalisasi sebagai libur yang menyenangkan. Sedangkan gelandangan adalah kaum miskin yang terlunta dalam globalisasi seperti para pengungsi dan pekerja migran. Mereka mengalami globalisasi dalam keadaan serba rawan dan serba rentan. Globalisasi adalah kekuatan transformatif yang mendorong perubahan mendasar dan struktural di bidang sosial, ekonomi, politik, budaya, ekologi, dan militer. Ia menginterupsi hubungan internal dan eksternal tiap bangsa secara besar-besaran. Namun ia juga adalah sebuah proses sejarah yang dinamis dan terbuka, membelah manusia dan komunitasnya dengan penuh kontradiksi dan paradoks. Ini adalah serangkaian proses yang menghasilkan bentuk-bentuk baru hubungan kekuasaan di tingkat global dan lokal yang pada gilirannya menyebabkan stratifikasi baru dan pengucilan terhadap orang-orang di berbagai sektor sosial. Globalisasi diam-diam telah merekonstruksi pola inklusi dan eksklusi tradisional di antara negara-negara dengan membentuk hierarki baru di semua masyarakat dan wilayah dunia, antara utara dan selatan, dunia pertama dan dunia ketiga, orang kaya dan orang miskin. Semua terjalin secara paradoks dalam persamaan kultural, sekaligus perbedaan jurang ekonomi sosial.
Oke, terima kasih.
Perbedaan ini juga jangan-jangan berlaku bagi kita semua yang hari ini hadir mewakili negara masing-masing. Forum suprastate semacam ini adalah tempat yang baik, namun ia tetap tidak mungkin menghapuskan perbedaan-perbedaan dari warga atau umat kita masing-masing yang suaranya kita wakili di sini. Politik global mengubah fondasi tatanan lokal, tatanan nasional, regional, dan dunia. Salah satunya adalah homogenisasi budaya. Homogenisasi dalam kebudayaan bisa berarti eksterminasi dan kekerasan simbolik. Ia menghapuskan jejak identitas dari suatu masyarakat dan budaya lokal yang sebelumnya eksis, baik itu adatnya, makanannya, sistem politiknya, dan simbol-simbol kebudayaan lainnya. Dengan itu, globalisasi mengundang balik respon dan tantangan yang seringkali juga keras. Politik identitas yang muncul di Amerika Latin dan Afrika misalnya adalah respon yang bermaksud menyuarakan identitas mereka yang dipinggirkan oleh globalisasi. Pada sisi yang lebih ekstrim, sebagian gerakan fundamentalisme agama juga muncul sedikit banyak sebagai respon dari keruntuhan negara bangsa di kawasan Persia dan homogenisasi yang dilahirkan oleh globalisasi. Proses global yang intensif ini tidak hanya menggeser warga dari peta tradisional geopolitik dunia, tetapi juga menghancurkan sentralitas yang telah diduduki oleh negara. Ia menunjukkan bahwa penyesuaian yang signifikan dengan persyaratan politik yang baru diperlukan untuk menopang hidup negara bangsa agar tetap relevan. Inilah globalisasi dalam kisah yang pertama. Hadirin yang saya hormati, apa yang saya sajikan dalam kisah pertama globalisasi adalah globalisasi yang paradoksal. Ia mengintegrasikan kita dalam kultur global, tapi sekaligus dengan itu ia justru membelah dan membangun stratifikasi baru yang mengakibatkan banyak kaum miskin di berbagai negara yang ekonominya lemah makin menderita. Globalisasi dalam kisah ini boleh diibaratkan selaksa gelombang pasang yang memporak-porandakan identitas dan pendirian-pendirian dasar, bukan hanya bagi negara bangsa, tetapi juga bagi kemanusiaan universal serta religiusitas. Namun untungnya bagi kita cerita tidak sampai di sini. Sejak setidaknya tahun 2020, dunia mengalami globalisasi dalam rupa yang sama sekali berbeda. Globalisasi sebagai bencana, duka cita, sekaligus solidaritas. Ini adalah paradoks lain dari kisah globalisasi yang kedua, yaitu globalisasi pandemik. Hadirin yang saya muliakan, dengan cara yang belum pernah terjadi sebelumnya, COVID-19 bukan hanya telah mengkonfirmasi ulang, mengkonfigurasi ulang struktur transnasional, mobilitas, dan koneksi yang telah menjadi dasar bagi globalisasi pasca Perang Dingin. Pandemik secara mondial menghadapkan setiap orang di belahan dunia manapun dengan latar belakang kelas sosial apapun, agama dan bangsa yang berbeda-beda untuk berhadapan dengan bela sungkawa universal. Di dalam pandemik, baik turis maupun gelandangan sama-sama menghadapi risiko yang dihadapkan dengan keganasan virus yang mematikan. Dalam 3 tahun yang serba ganas, globalisasi ini mengalirkan pandemik sebagai pengalaman bersama, duka cita dari kematian yang sunyi, ruang-ruang isolasi. Tapi di saat yang sama ia juga membangkitkan militansi akal budi, sains, dan kerja keras semua bangsa untuk lolos menuju normal baru yang lebih berpengharapan di mana kita kini sekarang berada. Pandemik mengajarkan kita bahwa di dalam segala perbedaan, di atas demarkasi kelas sosial dan kekayaan, serta hierarki kesetaraan, baik yang terjadi antar negara dan antar manusia, semua common ground bagi kelanjutan kemanusiaan ternyata masih dimungkinkan. Di sini kita menemukan bahwa ternyata ada yang lebih solid dan krusial dari sekedar ekonomi, politik, atau batas dan teritori. Saya ingin meminjam perumpamaan dari seorang pemikir filsafat. Etika zaman pandemik ini dapat dirumuskan dalam satu kalimat pendek yang dipetik dari metafor Kristianitas, noli matengire, yang artinya jangan pegang aku, jangan pegang aku apabila kau mengasihi aku. Disinilah jarak dipertahankan, justru dalam rangka memelihara keakraban sosial dan solidaritas. Pandemi memaksa orang untuk mengambil tindakan etis di mana keselamatan diri hanya bisa dipertahankan melalui keselamatan orang lain. Dengan itu, wabah yang mengerikan menghadirkan kegentaran tapi sekaligus menumbuhkan atmosfer etik mondial. Hadirin yang terhormat, globalisasi pandemik mengajarkan kita betapa berharga dan pentingnya sains dan ilmu kedokteran bersama-sama dengan kekuatan solidaritas dan kesukarelaan antar manusia. Sains menuntun kita keluar dari bencana, namun etika, solidaritas, dan kemanusiaan yang memelihara dan memperkuat pikiran dan kesehatan jiwa manusia selama dalam bencana. Dengan kata lain, bagi kita orang yang beriman, pandemik ini menghadirkan kengerian yang mencengangkan. Ia menakutkan, namun ia saat yang sama juga menunjukkan sisi-sisi kemuliaan manusia yang menandakan adanya cakrawala kebaikan yang transenden itu. Di titik inilah kita meyakini bahwa solidaritas manusia akan lebih merekah dan tumbuh apabila ia diatur oleh keserasian antara akal budi dan nilai-nilai yang baik, solidaritas, kebersamaan, dan kemanusiaan yang universal. Indonesia adalah bangsa yang tumbuh oleh tempaan sejarah, melintasi prahara demi prahara, termasuk prahara COVID-19. Mulai dari sejarah kolonialisme, pergerakan politik, otoritarianisme Orde Baru, dan kini demokrasi. Demokrasi telah memberikan Indonesia jalan terbaik bagi rakyat untuk berpartisipasi mempertahankan hak-hak dan kewajiban konstitusionalnya. Namun lebih dari itu, Indonesia juga adalah negara Pancasila, sebagaimana topik yang diberikan kepada saya. Sejarah Pancasila adalah sejarah nilai-nilai dan prinsip keutamaan. Tanggal 1 Juni 1945 di depan sidang Dokuritsu Zunbi Soyakai yang dalam bahasa Indonesia diterjemahkan menjadi Badan untuk Menyelidiki Usaha-usaha Persiapan Kemerdekaan atau disingkat BPUPK, Soekarno membacakan pemandangan umum mengenai bentuk negara Indonesia. Dalam pidatonya, Soekarno merumuskan 5 prinsip sebagai dasar dari Statsire Indonesia, yaitu yang pertama, kebangsaan Indonesia, kedua, internasionalisme atau peri kemanusiaan, ketiga, mufakat atau demokrasi, keempat, kesejahteraan sosial, dan kelima, bertakwa kepada Tuhan Yang Maha Esa. Sejak disahkannya pembukaan dan batang tubuh Undang-Undang Dasar 1945 dalam sidang Panitia Persiapan Kemerdekaan Indonesia tanggal 18 Agustus 1945, Pancasila ditetapkan sebagai dasar negara Republik Indonesia. 5 prinsip yang diajukan Soekarno itu sebagai dasar negara diubah dengan urutan sebagai berikut. Yang pertama, ketuhanan yang Maha Esa. Kedua, kemanusiaan yang adil dan beradab. Ketiga, persatuan Indonesia. Keempat, kerakyatan yang dipimpin oleh hikmat kebijaksanaan dalam permusyawaratan perwakilan. Kelima, keadilan sosial bagi seluruh rakyat Indonesia. Ini adalah jalan damai dari keinginan sekaligus kebesaran hati kelompok Islam sebagai mayoritas dengan merelakan 7 kata yang sebelumnya menyertai sila ketuhanan yang Maha Esa untuk dihapus. 7 kata itu dengan kewajiban menjalankan syariat Islam bagi pemeluk-pemeluknya. Pilihan ini juga disebut sebagai upaya menyelamatkan Indonesia untuk tidak menjadi negara sekuler sebagaimana kekhawatiran kelompok nasionalis pada waktu itu. Pada momen itu dapat juga dilihat bagaimana Soekarno menempatkan dasar negara sekaligus sebagai sebuah filsafat dan ideologi. Dengan itu, Pancasila ditetapkan paling tidak untuk memenuhi 2 fungsi, yaitu yang pertama sebagai simbol mengukuhkan pendirian negara Republik yang merdeka. Di sini Pancasila berfungsi praktis dalam arti ia sengaja dipilih untuk menjamin suatu kesatuan dan integrasi politik yang bernama Republik Indonesia. Dengan itu, Pancasila diposisikan sebagai visi bersama bagi pencapaian tujuan negara bangsa yang diperjuangkan oleh Pancasila. Yang kedua, Pancasila juga dikukuhkan sebagai wawasan politik atau dasar negara. Ini nampak dari konstruksi Soekarno yang secara eksplisit mengkomparasikan Pancasila secara setara dengan filsafat dan ideologi-ideologi lain seperti Marxisme, liberalisme, dan Sanminjui. Namun demikian, lepas dari retorika Soekarno, Pancasila bukanlah suatu ideologi politik partikular yang tertutup dan sistematis total sebagaimana Marxisme maupun liberalisme. Soekarno sendiri lebih menekankan fungsi implisit Pancasila sebagai sign of unity untuk Republik yang merdeka. Dalam rumusan lain, Profesor Muhammad Hatta, Wakil Presiden pertama Republik Indonesia, sekaligus proklamator bersama Soekarno, mengatakan bahwa Pancasila mengandung 2 fundamen, yaitu fundamen moral, sila pertama dan kedua, dan fundamen politik, sila ketiga, keempat, dan kelima. Dengan itu, apabila kita tafsirkan dalam kerangka politik kewargaan, negara Pancasila dapat dipahami sebagai negara yang mendorong rakyatnya hidup berdasarkan prinsip-prinsip moral, berketuhanan dan berkemanusiaan, dan prinsip-prinsip politik menjaga persatuan, berdemokrasi, dan menjunjung keadilan sosial. Saya berkeyakinan bahwa prinsip-prinsip Pancasila bersifat by default dalam alam pikiran dan perilaku orang Indonesia. Ia menyediakan sarana retrospektif yang dibutuhkan, terutama di saat orang Indonesia secara kolektif menghadapi persoalan-persoalan besar yang dihadirkan oleh sejarah dan zamannya. Dari segi ini saya berpandangan bahwa sejauh ia hidup dalam perilaku kewargaan, maka Pancasila akan lebih tumbuh justru melalui mekanisme implisitnya, bukan melalui mekanisme eksplisit yang serba verbal. Pengalaman Indonesia di bawah Orde Baru menunjukkan bahwa eksplisitasi Pancasila yang berlebih-lebihan hanya membuat ia jauh dari hati sanubari rakyat. Sebaliknya, dorongan yang lebih nyata kepada solidaritas, kemanusiaan, rasa persatuan justru mendorong Pancasila merekah dalam tindakan. Pengalaman pandemi di Indonesia membuktikan ini secara gamblang. Tanpa partisipasi sukarela rakyat, tanpa solidaritas dan rasa persatuan, tanpa kemanusiaan dan kehendak untuk adil, rasanya sulit Indonesia bisa mengatasi krisis demi krisis serta globalisasi pandemi dengan baik. Hadirin yang saya hormati, akhirnya sebagai penutup, dengan menguraikan Pancasila dalam 2 kisah globalisasi itu, saya hanya ingin menekankan bahwa hal-hal material memang bisa menopang kemajuan, namun harapan-harapan terbaik umat manusia pada akhirnya hanya bisa dijamin dalam prinsip-prinsip bersama yang kokoh serta universal. Last but not least, I'd like to quote a statement from our first president, Sukarno, that we unite because we are strong, and we are stronger when we unite. This has the same spirit as an African proverb. If we want to walk fast, we walk alone. If we want to walk far, let's walk together. In my words, walking together is much better than crawling alone. Thank you for your kind attention. Allahumma fiq laqmi tariq. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Minister for Religious Affairs, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to address us. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great privilege and honor to introduce today's keynote speaker for this session. The keynote speaker for today is Professor Marianne Glendon of Harvard Law School in America. The title of her talk is The Quest for Shared Civilizational Values. Professor Glendon's bio is very long, and with great difficulty, we have shortened it, and I will read a few lines. Marianne Glendon is Learned Hand Professor of Law, Emerita at Harvard University, and a former US Ambassador to the Holy See. She writes in the fields of human rights, comparative law, and political theory. Glendon chaired the US State Department Commission on Unalienable Rights between 2019 and 2020, and served as a member of the Commission on International Religious Freedom between 2012 and 2016. And she is also the U.S. President's. She is also on the U.S. President's. Was also on the U.S. President's Council on Bioethics between 2001 and 2004. She received the National Humanities Medal in 2006. In 1991. She was elected to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. She was president of the Pontifical Academy of Social Sciences from 2003 to 2013, and a member of the Board of Supervisors of the Institute of Religious Works, also known as the Vatican Bank, from 2013 to 2018. And she has also represented the Holy See at various conferences, including the 1995 UN Women's Conference in Beijing, where she headed the Vatican delegation. Please let us put our hands together and welcome Professor Marianne Glendon.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for that very kind introduction. When you get to be an old person, you have a long biography. Sorry. I have to begin by expressing great appreciation to the co-sponsors of this conference, Kai Haji Yahya Cholil Shakuf and Sheikh Mohammed Al-Isa, a conference that is first of its kind, and I believe that it's not too soon to say that this is a landmark for the G20 to recognize the role of religion in geopolitical discourse. In fact, someday we might look back on this as a historic event, a kind of turning point that will always be associated with Indonesia and the philosophy of Pancasila. Not surprisingly, like any new idea, the idea of an R20 summit has caused a certain amount of puzzlement in some quarters. And so we hear questions like these. What's religion got to do with the aims of the G20 for global economic stability and sustainable growth? Or how can religion foster stability when it's so often been a divisive element? Or how can we even talk about shared values when there is so much cultural and religious diversity in the world? And all of those kinds of questions will be very much in the background of our panel's discussion today. Difficult topics are ahead of us. How to deal with historical grievances, how can universal principles be reconciled with cultural diversity, and how can one assure that religion will be a source of social harmony rather than a source of problems in years to come. Now, since I've been asked to offer a few thoughts about the challenge of identifying shared values, I'd like to propose examining that topic from three angles: looking around, looking back, and looking forward. And by looking around, I simply mean trying to take stock of the obstacles that confront any effort to identify and affirm shared values. By looking back, I mean asking if there's anything that we might learn from a similar effort that was undertaken 75 years ago in the early days of the United Nations. And by looking ahead, I mean asking ourselves what religious leaders and scholars can do to help assure that religion will help promote human flourishing rather than division and conflict. So when we look around, we don't have to look far to see that one of the greatest challenges ahead is the belief of many people, including many very influential people, that religion is outdated, obsolete, irrelevant, and even an obstacle to peace and social stability. What can we say to people who hold those beliefs? Of course, what we can say depends very much on what our interlocutor is able or willing to hear, but I would like to suggest that one way to get the attention of at least some international policymakers might be to point out to them that every single one of the goals of the G20, every one of its aspirations, is currently threatened by a grave environmental crisis. And no, I do not mean the well-known threats to our natural habitat. I'm speaking of another crisis that is less well recognized and entirely man-made. I'm speaking of a crisis in our social environments. And the signs of that crisis are all around us. They're in the fraying of the intricate webs of customs and understandings on which the success of every program, every policy ultimately depends. They're in the deterioration of the small structures of civil society where those customs and understandings are formed. And those small structures, families, schools, religious groups, other kinds of groups, those structures are the seedbeds, the nurseries of the qualities of character and competence that every healthy society requires in its citizens and statespersons. And it's at that very basic level that the world's great culture-forming religions have a vital role to play. Of particular relevance to the goals of the G20 is the fact that globalization, along with its many benefits, including bringing people closer together, globalization also has powerful effects on those little social environments. In fact, globalization has the potential to uproot cultures at a pace never seen before. As one longtime observer has pointed out, you can't build an emerging society if you are simultaneously destroying the cultural foundations that cement that society and give it the confidence and cohesion that it needs in order to confront and act properly with the world. And without a sustainable culture, there can be no sustainable globalization. Now, if that's correct, and I believe it is, it's hard to see how the benefits of globalization can be maximized without taking religion seriously. But in most discussions of international policy, we hear a great deal about the negative effects of religion and very little about the important ways in which the world's religions have contributed to the maintenance of healthy societies and cultures. Of course, religion isn't the only element to be considered, but it is such a major force that one cannot simply ignore it. And that is why the G20 was wise to take religion seriously. As Pope Francis once put it, humanity has been too slow to recognize that social environments, like natural environments, are at risk and need protection. And that's why our first topic this afternoon, the quest for shared civilizational values, this topic has acquired new urgency in our increasingly interdependent and yet conflict-ridden world. Interestingly, the last time that a multinational group paid attention to this question of shared values was many years ago, when the newly formed United Nations decided to respond to calls for some kind of international document involving human rights. And so as we approach the question of shared values today, it might be interesting to take just a brief look at what we might learn from that previous experience. Back then, the idea, this is right after World War II, the idea of shared values was considered ridiculous by the self-styled realists of the day and by many prominent anthropologists who were more interested in the differences among people than in what makes us all part of a human family. But fortunately for posterity, the UN decided to go ahead anyway, and the result was a historic political achievement. It was the approval of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948 without a single dissenting vote. And the UN in those days was already impressively multicultural, although, of course, imperfectly so, largely by not yet including the many countries that were still under colonial rule and in the global south. At the time, though, the commission that was assigned to draft the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was also impressively multicultural. And I'd just like to honor a few of the names of the leading members. China's Peng Chungjiang was not only a gifted diplomat, but a respected educator and philosopher. India's Hansa Mehta was a pioneering feminist and social activist, and she was the one who pressed for equality between men and women in the Universal Declaration. Chile's Hernan Santa Cruz was a great advocate for the social and economic rights. Lebanon's Charles Malik at the time was the chief spokesman for the Arab League in the early UN, all through the Palestinian crisis. French jurist René Cassin put the stylistic touches on the document, and American Eleanor Roosevelt was the chairperson. Now, the declaration itself was not a legally binding document, but what made it a historic achievement was that it was an official consensus that some things are so terrible that no one, or virtually no one, will openly approve them or admit they approve them. And some things are so good that virtually no one will openly oppose them or admit they oppose them. But today, that consensus is faltering. Memories of the terrible wars of the early part of the 20th century are fading. and the ethnic strife and conflicts that have followed, regional and ethnic strife and conflicts, have impaired the sense of a single human family. Some powerful countries are contesting the very idea of universal rights in the name of economics, national security, or economic necessity. Some Western groups are using the language of human rights to promote ideas that are not widely accepted in other parts of the world, and often not even in their own countries. The time seems right, therefore, for a new and even more broad-based effort to identify and affirm shared civilizational values. And as this R20 takes up that challenge, it might be helpful to recall two conclusions that were reached by the framers of the UDHR. One was that the number of principles that people of vastly different cultures will recognize as universal is relatively modest. Not everything can be a universal human right. And second, that universality of principles does not mean uniformity in their application. I think that is a point where it's a place where the world religions have something to teach international policymakers, especially the kind of policymakers that prefer top-down solutions to problems. The world's religions have always understood, better than international policymakers, that a common set of principles can be brought to life, and indeed can only be brought to life, in different societies in a legitimate variety of ways, so long as no core principle is completely ignored. But here's the problem. It's one thing to identify shared principles, and quite another to bring those principles to life in concrete situations. And that's the real challenge. Which brings us to looking forward, to the possible role of religions in promoting an international order grounded in shared civilizational values. There's no doubt that religious leaders will be essential to maximizing the beneficial effects of religion and countering its negative effects. But it must be admitted, and that's why we're all here at this particular session, it must be admitted that there are formidable obstacles to that effort. And one of them involves some business that a UN study group had to leave unfinished 75 years ago when this group of philosophers was asked by UNESCO to look into whether there really were any values that could be said to be universal. And they solicited the views of religious leaders and political figures around the world, and they reported, yes, there are some practical ideas about decent human conduct that are indeed widely shared. But then they added an important warning. They said, those practical ideas rest on principles that are somewhat different from place to place, different ideas about human nature and about nature itself. As one of the members of that UNESCO commission, the French philosopher Jacques Maritain said, yes, we agree on the rights so long as no one asks us why. So there's the challenge. So if the quest for shared values is to advance beyond where it was left back then, it will have to go beyond superficial agreement. It will require each tradition to look deeply into its own foundations. And like any other process of excavation, when you dig things up, sometimes there are uncomfortable discoveries. But that exercise can also lead to a fresh appreciation of deep truths that have long been obscured. Plato in the Republic gives us a wonderful analogy of a statue of the sea god Glaucus that was in the ocean for many years, and when they dredged it up, it was all crusted with shells and covered with seaweed, and it was only when all that debris was cleared away that you could see, as Plato tells us, the true and lasting features of the god. Now, something like that was experienced by the United States Commission on Unalienable Rights when we were asked in 2019 to see if the universal principles in the Universal Declaration could be grounded in our American political tradition. Our commission concluded that yes, that was possible, but along the way, we had to confront some very uncomfortable, troubling aspects of our own country's history. And similarly, in the Roman Catholic religion, as Pakyaya pointed out in his speech, in the Roman Catholic religion, the Second Vatican Council had to confront historic injustices committed in the name of Christianity. Now, as if all those challenges weren't enough, here's another one for religious leaders and scholars. They will have to educate their followers to reject the use of religion as a pretext for violence. They'll have to reject ideologies that manipulate religion for political purposes. And much will depend on whether secularist leaders can free their followers from prejudice against religion and get them to accept that religious voices have a place in public deliberations. So all in all, I think we must admit that anyone who looks at our program for this R20 meeting would probably say it looks very ambitious. And that means that many people will probably dismiss it as unrealistic, as many dismissed the post-World War II Human Rights Project as unrealistic at that time. Yet, that project proved that ideals are real as earth and water. And it's worth remembering, thank you. It's worth remembering that the men and women who held those ideals were not naive in their idealism. They had lived through 2 world wars, severe economic crises. They had seen human beings at their best as well as at their worst, and they took encouragement from the fact that while human beings are capable of great evils, they are also capable of imagining that there are better ways to live. And they were capable of putting their ideals into declarations and constitutions. And they were capable of orienting their conduct toward the ideals that they themselves had embraced. There's a sculpture outside the UN building in New York City. Perhaps some of you have seen this remarkable sculpture. It captures something of that idealism tempered with realism. It's an enormous sphere of burnished bronze. It's beautiful. It suggests a globe. And, oh, there it is. There it is. If you look back there, you'll see it. It's an enormous sphere of burnished bronze. It suggests a globe, but it's cracked. And it's those imperfections cause the passerby to stop and wonder, is it cracked because it's defective? Is it cracked because of some terrible disaster? Or maybe it's cracked like an egg because something else has to emerge? And perhaps all of those things. But when you look into the cracks, you see that another brightly shining sphere is coming along, but that one is cracked too. Yet, there's a tremendous sense of potency, of dynamism, and of emergent possibilities. So I will close with this thought. Years from now, people not yet born will form opinions about our stewardship of the legacy that was handed down to us by men and women who were striving to bring standards of right out of the ashes of terrible wrongs. And someday, people who come after us will pass judgment on whether we enhanced or sustained that fragile inheritance. So let's take heart from the knowledge that this R20 shows that there are still many women and men in the world who are determined to make ideals real again. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Glendon, for that inspirational message and a call to action. Our next speaker is His Excellency Dr. Hamdan Musallam Al-Mazrouei, Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Mohamed bin Zayed University for Humanities. His Excellency holds a PhD with distinction, excellent honors, specializing in advocacy and reckoning from Imam Mohammed bin Saud University in Riyadh, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Dr. Hamdan has held many positions and chairs many boards of directors. His Excellency has been an advisor in the court of the Crown Prince of the UAE from 2014 until the present. Dr. Al-Mazrouei has also been honored by numerous local Arab and international bodies, most notably with the First-Class Medal of Science and Arts by the President of the Arab Republic of Egypt, and with the Rasjid Award for Scientific Excellence. I welcome you, Your Excellency.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. أما بعد، أصحاب المعالي والسعادة والفضيلة، ضيوف قمة مجموعة تواصل الأديان المشاركة لمجموعة العشرين، الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يسرني أن أعبر عن شكري وامتناني لكل من ساهم في هذا اللقاء، وأشكركم شكراً خاصاً على حسن ضيافتكم أهلي في أندونيسيا. شكراً لكم حكومة وشعباً على ضيافتكم لنا في هذه الأيام أثناء تواجدنا بينكم. كم أنا سعيد بهذا اللقاء، سعيد سعادة بالغة بأن أشارك في هذا المنتدى السنوي لقمة مجموعة تواصل الأديان المشاركة لمجموعة العشرين في موضوع بناء الجسور بين الشرق والغرب، ذلك من أجل ترسيخ القواعد الرصينة لنظام عالمي مؤسس على القيم الأخلاقية والروحية المشتركة، وبناء الصداقات المتينة بين جميع الأوطان والحضارات والأديان. هذه القمة الدينية ستكون بإذن الله منارة عالمية وفرصة سانحة يمكن من خلالها للقادة الدينيين في جميع أنحاء العالم أن يعبروا عن تطلعاتهم العملية لإسماع صوت العقل والأخلاق والتسامح والتعايش والأمن والسلام إلى أتباعهم وإلى كل من يثق في رأيهم. أيها السادة الحضور، النصوص المقدسة تصرح بأن مبدأ الخلق جميعاً واحد، ففي القرآن الكريم يقول الله تعالى تأكيداً على هذا المبدأ: هو الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة. كما جاء في القرآن الكريم في أكثر من آية يخاطب الله تعالى فيها البشر فيناديهم بقوله تعالى: يا بني آدم. والحقائق الكونية تؤكد تأكيداً جازماً للبشر على وحدة الأصل ومكان العيش في هذه الأرض، كما أن العناصر التي تتكون منها الأرض لها خصائص وسمات مختلفة، كذلك جاء اختلاف البشر في الطباع والألوان والثقافة والديانة لحكمة أرادها الله سبحانه وتعالى. أيها السادة، الناس اليوم يختلفون عن بعضهم البعض في أشياء كثيرة، وهذا الاختلاف لا يجب أن يكون سبباً للخلاف، فهناك اختلاف بين البشر وهذا أمر فطري لا يمكن لنا أن نغيره ولا أن نبدله، ولكن هناك اختلاف وهناك خلاف، فالاختلاف أمر فطري ولكن الخلاف هو من صنع البشر، فهو موجود عند بعض البشر، وهذا الخلاف هو الذي يجب أن يصحح وأن يبدل من الخلاف إلى التوافق وإلى التعايش. فالله جلت قدرته قد فطر البشر على الاختلاف في المذاهب والآراء والعقائد، وهذا خلق الله تعالى، لا يمكن لأحد أن يغير ذلك، ولا سبيل لنا إلى جمع الكلمة إلا أن نغير من الخلاف إلى التوافق والتعايش والحوار الإيجابي والبحث عن المشتركات والتعايش معها، بل وتفعيلها والدعوة إليها، لا سيما في هذه الأيام التي نعيش نحن فيها على أرض هي أشبه ما تكون بالقرية الصغيرة، وهذه القرية الصغيرة يوماً بعد يوم تصبح أصغر، وكذلك وسائل النقل أصبحت أسرع وأيسر وأسهل بين بني البشر. إخواني وأخواتي، سمعنا الكثير من المبادرات وحضرنا الكثير من المؤتمرات، ولكن دعوني أن أنتقل بكم من الحديث النظري إلى الواقع العملي، ودعوني أن أتشرف بأن أعرض على حضراتكم نموذجاً عملياً وليس نظرياً من دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة التي أتشرف بالانتساب إليها والتي أتيت إليكم منها. هذه الدولة تبعث من أرضها إلى العالم جميعاً برسالة التسامح والتعايش، وتعمل بجد وعزم لترسيخ هذه الثقافة باعتبارها قيمة إنسانية رفيعة، بل إن دولة الإمارات جعلت هذا الأمر روحاً لدستورها وقوانينها وعلامة على حضارتها وأخلاقها وقيمها وعاداتها النبيلة. التسامح في دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة يمثل قيمة أصيلة وعادات نبيلة، فهذه القيم الفاضلة هي التي نشأت مع نشأة دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة التي أسسها الوالد المؤسس الشيخ زايد بن سلطان آل نهيان طيب الله ثراه، وسار على هذا الدرب صاحب السمو سيدي صاحب السمو الشيخ محمد بن زايد آل نهيان رئيس الدولة حفظه الله، فهو رجل عظيم ترسخت فيه صفات التسامح والتعايش، وما يزال يجود بقلبه الإنساني وفكره العقلاني بالمبادرات الإنسانية والتشجيع على الحوارات الحضارية التي تعيد رونق احترام الأديان والمعتقدات إلى مكانها الصحيح، حتى غدت دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة قبلة للتسامح وعنوانا للسلام وصرحا للقيم والأخلاق ومحطة لتلاقي العقلاء والحكماء وعلماء الفلاسفة ورجال الدين. فلا عجب أن تحتضن دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة في هذه الأيام على أرضها أكثر من 200 جنسية يعيشون بكل حب وود وتعايش وسلام وأمان. ولقد أطلقت دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة الكثير من المبادرات التي تعني من شأن التسامح وتجعله قيمة راسخة، وكان من أهمها وثيقة الأخوة الإنسانية التي كانت من أجل السلام العالمي والعيش المشترك، والتي تم توقيعها في العاصمة الإماراتية أبو ظبي برعاية كريمة من سيدي صاحب السمو الشيخ محمد بن زايد آل نهيان رئيس الدولة حفظه الله، وبحضور شيخ الأزهر الدكتور أحمد الطيب وبابا الفاتيكان رئيس الكنيسة الكاثوليكية البابا فرانسيس في فبراير في عام 2019 ميلادياً. يعد توقيع هذه الوثيقة حدثاً تاريخياً في مسار التواصل بين الأديان، ونقلة فريدة في تاريخ الإنسانية يؤهلها للنهوض بالحوار إلى قيم التعارف، ويمكنها من خدمة الإنسان والأوطان وزرع بذور السلم ونشر ثقافة التسامح والوئام، ومد جسور الود والصداقة بين الشرق والغرب، وبناء مرحلة جديدة تقوم على التآخي الإنساني والاحترام المتبادل. كما أن دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة خصصت عاماً في 2019 ميلادي وأسمته عام التسامح، وكذلك قامت بتجريم التكفير وسب الأديان من خلال إصدار قانون، وهذا القانون سمي قانون التمييز والكراهية، وكان ذلك في عام 2015. ويعد هذا القانون مميزاً لحماية الأديان من العنصرية ومن الغلو والعنف والتطرف. كما قامت دولة الإمارات تحقيقاً لهذا المبدأ بإنشاء وزارة التسامح في عام 2016، وزارة في حكومة دولة الإمارات تسمى وزارة التسامح. نعم، في 2016 تعمل ضمن إطار مؤسسي وحكومي لترسيخ ثقافة التسامح والعمل على حماية التنوع ونبذ التعصب. كما أنشأت في عام 2014 ميلادي منتدى أبو ظبي للسلم، ومن أهم منجزات هذا المنتدى إطلاق إعلان المواطنة الشاملة، وهو إعلان يهدف إلى وضع تصور مؤصل للمواطنة في الدولة الوطنية. وأطلق المنتدى في عام 2018 مبادرة حلف الفضيلة في واشنطن، وهو حلف يضم قيادات دينية من بيت العائلة الإبراهيمية، وهو أيضاً نقلة نوعية في مسار الشراكة والتعاون بين أديان العائلة الإبراهيمية على ترسيخ قيم التعايش والتعارف والمحبة. وقامت دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة كذلك بتعزيز التسامح في مؤسساتها التعليمية من خلال إطلاق أول برنامج عالمي في تدريس طلاب الجامعات في مرحلة البكالوريوس والماجستير في المنطقة، يعنى بتخصص التسامح في جامعة محمد بن زايد للعلوم الإنسانية، والتي تتشرف بحمل اسم رجل الإنسانية والسلام سيدي صاحب السمو الشيخ محمد بن زايد آل نهيان رئيس الدولة حفظه الله، وسدد على طريق الخير خطاه. كما أن دولة الإمارات أيها السادة تمد يد العون والمساعدة إلى دول العالم دون تمييز أو تفريق بين الناس في أديانهم وأعراقهم وأشكالهم، وتتصدر دول العالم في قيمة المساهمات في الجانب الإنساني. كل هذه نماذج على خطوات عملية لترسيخ مفهوم التسامح والتعايش. فأسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى التوفيق لهذا المؤتمر ولكل الجهود المخلصة لخدمة الإنسانية في جميع أنحاء العالم خدمة لبني آدم. ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا، ربنا لا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به، ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم، والحمد لله رب العالمين، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for that wonderful talk. The next speaker on this panel is His Excellency Andres Pastrana. His Excellency Andres Pastrana is the president of the Centrist Democrat International. He was also the former president of the Republic of Colombia. His talk today is entitled Western Humanism, Christian Democracy and Humanitarian Islam, an Alliance for the 21st Century. His Excellency Andres Pastrana was President of the Republic of Colombia from 1998 until 2002. During his presidency, Mr. Pastrana made important steps in negotiations with FARC and ELN, terrorist groups, His administration also proposed and oversaw the implementation of the Plan Colombia and package and an narcoticized strategy. But he was a man of many accomplishments and achievements before becoming president. Mr. Pastrana graduated as a lawyer from the University of Rosario in Bogota. He was a fellow at the Harvard University Center for International Affairs. He was twice awarded with the King of Spain's Award for Journalism. Currently, His Excellency, Mr. Pastrana, is president, as I said, of the Centrist Democratic International, which is the world's largest network of political parties. Welcome, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, authorities, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. Let me start my intervention by expressing on behalf of the Centrist Democrat International, the world's largest network of political parties, which I have the honor to lead, our gratitude to the co-host of the G20 Religion Forum, the R20, Nahdlatul Ulama and the Muslim World League, for their kind invitation to participate in this significant event with our presence here today. We want to acknowledge the importance of the R20 Forum to promote the world's political and economic structure which share moral principle and spiritual values. Our gratitude also goes to President Joko Widodo, President of the world's largest Muslim majority democracy, for his undoubted support to recognize the R20 as an official G20 main event, thus providing a global platform through which diverse religious leaders and cultural figures from across the world may discuss their concerns and exchange ideas with politicians to find solutions to global problems traditionally considered to the concern of political elites. I would like to congratulate President Jokowi, as his people like to call him, for his leadership and clairvoyance, bringing these players into a new game board. It is indeed essential to the well-being of humanity that moral and ethical values weigh equally with economic and political considerations in shaping public policy. Today, as President Jokowi is making history again, like President Sukarno did in 1955 with the Bandung Conference, one of the most significant geopolitical events of the 20th century, with the R20, President Jokowi is offering an historic opportunity to revive the spirit of that conference and update its agenda to confront humanity's current challenges. And today, under his leadership, Indonesia is also making history again by hosting the R20 like it did before with the Bandung Conference. Indonesia, a country founded upon the Pancasila philosophy and home to the humanitarian Islam movement, which embodies the collective wisdom of the country's multi-religious, pluralistic, and multi-ethnic civilization, and the noble values of Islam, including Rahmah, the universal love and compassion, inspires a strong sense of unity and social harmony under the national motto, oneness amid diversity, an extraordinary example for the world. And talking about history, please allow me to share a little piece of it with you. The CDI origins date back to 1925, when political parties from Belgium, Germany, Italy, France, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Austria, Switzerland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Spain, Portugal, and Lithuania gathered for the first time to establish the International Secretariat of Democratic Parties of Christian Inspiration, SIPDIC for its acronym in French. All of them were behind the intellectual, philosophical, and spiritual origins of the post-war World Second International Order, and closely associated with the tradition of Western humanism and Christian democracy. All of them share fundamental principles inspired by humanism, the dignity of people, personal freedoms, and human rights as later defined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948. And all of them serve one common objective: the constant search for peace between human beings. The International Secretariat evolved to the Christian Democrat International, and later on to the current Centrist Democrat International, due to an increasing membership of non-Christian parties which share the same principles and values regardless of their religious affiliation. Today, the CDI big family, with more than 100 political parties, which represent Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, etc., from all different regions in the world, with one fundamental aim: promoting a rule-based international order founded upon universal ethics and humanitarian values to confront today's challenges. And it is precisely here where we intervene with the ultimate goal of the R20, as stated by our good friend Pakiaya, founding chairman of the G20 Religion Forum and general chairman of Nahdlatul Ulama. We hope to facilitate the merge of global movement in which people of goodwill of every faith and nation will help bring the world's geopolitical and economic power structure into alignment with the highest moral and spiritual values for the sake of all humanity. The characteristic nature of the R20 as an unprecedented summit of high-level religious and political leaders will help address the current global challenges with a broader perspective, ensuring that religion can be a genuine and dynamic source of solutions rather than problems in the 21st century. And that comes at the time when we are still trying to deal with the terrible effects of the worst pandemic of our societies have known in modern times. For that reason, Indonesia G20 presidency chose the theme "Recover Together, Recover Stronger" in an effort to boost our collective ability to create inclusive and sustainable foundation for growth based on three pillars: global health architecture, sustainable energy transition, and digital transition. If you allow me, I would like to add the following: recover better. The quality of our recovery is instrumental to the success of such recovery, and this is the importance of the R20. The R20 can help promote rule-based international order founded upon universal ethics and humanitarian values at a time when see war in the European soil again, with a real possibility to further escalate into a multinational nuclear conflict which will trigger World War III. At a time when autocrats thrive all over the world, fostering the emergence of authoritarian civilizationist states that do not accept the rule-based post-World War II order, which has long served as the framework for international relations, including the greatest expansion of economic well-being in the history of humanity. At a time when narco-states expand their geographic scope and colonize new countries, especially including those under the umbrella of the Foro de Sao Paulo and the Grupo de Puebla in Latin America. At a time when people starve due to food shortages provoked by the wars and droughts, when families cannot pay energy prices, when natural disasters increase their frequency and destructive capacity. As these difficult times, we, political and religious leaders, must humbly admit our responsibility to this and further generations and realize that our actions today will shape the future of our children and grandchildren for good or for bad. In the CDI, we have been tirelessly working towards this goal. As the world's West-centered economic principle shifts towards Eurasia, and geopolitical competition threatens to undermine peace and security throughout this vast landmass, widespread acknowledgement of and adherence to universal ethics and humanitarian values may help ensure that that transition can be navigated more peacefully. CDI and its extensive global network of allies are in a unique position to facilitate this process, for they embrace a common set of human and universal values rooted in their respective religious and cultural traditions. These kindred traditions, which include but are not limited to Western humanism, Christian democracy, and humanitarian Islam, may serve as the foundation for a 21st century alliance to build a peaceful and prosperous global civilization. For all the above, the Centrist Democrat International invite peoples of goodwill of every faith and nation, as well as political parties and governments worldwide, to join us and the R20 Forum in this alliance to block the weaponization of religion, safeguard human dignity, and foster the emergence of a truly just and harmonious world order, founded upon the equal rights and dignity of every human being. Today, humanity is facing unprecedented threats, such as attacks on life, abortion, euthanasia, attacks on the family, gender ideology, and attacks on morality, relativism, and materialism. Only a joint effort among monotheist religions, ecumenism, such as the proposed by Pope St. John Paul II, will be able to overcome these threats. In spite of threats and difficulties, humanity always finds a way to overcome them, especially when it places its hopes in God, who always responds with overabundance to those who cry out for His divine intervention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It's wonderful how all the talks complement each other so well, as if it were divinely ordained. It is, after all, the Religion 20. The next speaker is M. Arsjad Rasjid, PM, who is the chairman of the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or KADIN. And the title of his talk is Infusing Religious Values into the Realm of Business and Economics. M. Arsjad, PM, is President and Director of Indica Energy, the Chairman of the Indonesia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and the host of the 2022 B20, or Business 20, which, like the R20, is an official G20 engagement group. Under his guidance, Indica Energy underwent an astonishing turnaround from losing millions of dollars to an increase in the company's assets by about 7 times within 6 years. He was elected as the chair of the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry for the 2021 until 2026 period. Welcome, sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Very good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Honorable guests, excellencies, and ladies and gentlemen. Today, I do believe history is being made as governments, religious institutions, civil society, and business actors have gathered to take concrete actions and fight against global challenges that affect everyone, regardless of race, religion, creed, or association. Before we move on, let me first introduce myself. My name is Arsjad, Rasjid, and I'm the chairman of the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the sole organizations mandated by the Indonesian law to represent the business community in Indonesia. And apart from that, we are also the host of the Business 20 Engagement Group of the G20. Today, I've been asked to speak on a topic that I really firmly believe in: how religious values are beneficial to spur inclusive economic growth. For religious believers, deep-rooted religious values are what move us, our core, our guiding principles of how we act and behave. It is more important now than ever to rely on and keep our values in check to address current global challenges. It's been 2 years since the pandemic began. Even though the Indonesian economy is recovering and growing at a rate of 5.4% in the second quarter of 2022, or this year, we still need to maintain vigilance as we are currently experiencing a fundamental shift in the global economy, as volatility, uncertainty, and climate crisis continue to worsen. To prepare for these challenges, Indonesia G20 presidency has come up with the 3 priorities issues to address, namely global healthcare architectures, the digital transformation, and also sustainable energy transition. However, the striving for these ideals come with its own problems. For example, the priority for health architectures strive for strengthen a global health system so the world is ready to face the next pandemic. However, in reality, as we saw during the last pandemic, vaccine inequity is a real threat to realizing this goal. The rich had more capital to expedite research, manufacturing, and rolling out of vaccines, while poor economies were lagging and were left to survive on their own. On digital transformation and sustainable energy transition are a double-edged sword. First, it has the ability to empower millions of people through technology, but on the other hand, it will erode the necessities for a lot of jobs that are going to be replaced by machinery and automation. McKinsey latest report states that 30% of the global workers could be displaced by automation by the year 2030. The same goes for energy transition. For those who are currently working for the lucrative, extractive fossil economy, the green transition will render their expertise and skill obsolete due to the green economy. To address these issues inclusively, we must infuse the world's political and economic power structures with moral, spiritual, and religious values. Upon looking at many religions, the common threads for all religion is that it teaches compassion and love to humankind. For example, the golden rule exists in all major world religions. Christianity, for the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. In Buddhism, whatever is disagreeable to yourself, do not unto others. Islam, none of you will believe until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. Confucianism, do not do others what you do not want them to do to you. Hinduism, this is the sum of duty. Do not unto others which would cause you pain if done to you. As diverse and multi-religious country, Indonesia has developed a system of economic development and empowerment that infuses religious values. Traditional values such as, in Indonesia we call it gotong royong, inclusive collaboration, and Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, unity in diversity, are the core values for Indonesia and Indonesians. This concept is unique to us, and we must hold to it for equitable and just economic development. These values should inform our policy making, and solidarity is at the heart of our life experiences. These values enable us to move away from a growth at all costs model to a leave no one behind model of the economy, and this acknowledging the just transition are indispensable tool in this shift. We are united in our affirmation that a move towards a sustainable future cannot be made at the expense of the poor and vulnerable. A just transition is thus about making sure that everyone affected can have their say. No one is left behind by designing policies that do not introduce new hardship and deepen inequalities. To translate it to a global setting, I like to introduce the concept of 5 Ps. Peace, prosperity, people, planet, and partnership. An inclusive development framework. Peace, the prerequisite to any stability. Without peace, any other efforts are futile. Prosperity, this contributes to the realization of peace, putting an end to social and economic disparity, minimizes the chance for conflicts rooted in disparities and inequalities. People's development skills, the autonomy as individuals contribute to life satisfaction, economic development, and prosperity. Planet. Preservation of the planet ensures the longevity and health of the people. partnership. Inclusive collaboration can expedite the global world in achieving all the other P's without leaving anyone behind. In this opportunity, I would like to ask this forum to first support and amplify the pressing need for global partnership and international solidarity. As the earth is one, but the world is not. Each country has shortcomings, especially emerging economies that run on limited resources. Efforts undertaken in isolation no longer work in the enormity and expense of the problems involved. Just transition requires a change of mindset in how decisions are made and how actions are taken to recover and rediscover the time-honored common values of humanity, such as solidarity, human dignity, social inclusivity, and economic equity, while striving towards an environmentally sustainable economy. The framework for a just and inclusive economy is there. Now, it is the duty of thought leaders and religious clerics to urge government leaders and their congregation to put it into practice. Now, you might ask the question, how to put all this aspiration into tangible programs? What are the paths forward? First, robust social protection systems, including public health and education, are needed to boost the economic and climate resilience of disadvantaged groups such as women, indigenous groups, migrants, and youth. Second, cross-border capacity building at many different levels. In addition to the expanded access to public education and vocational training, efforts should target institutions from research organizations and think tanks, where research and development should be fomented with sustainability in mind. To government bodies to strengthen the capacity to design, implement, and monitor just transition process or policies. Increase the frequency of North-South dialogues around the topic of global solidarity for a just transition to develop a cooperation framework in addressing the displacement as rich countries transition away from the fossil fuels. So the Global South can respond strategically to the impact of the transition. Financing for the development, the last but not least, which requires commitments from developed countries to support international development and climate financing in emerging economies. Lastly, I would like to say that the world needs more interfaith dialogue platforms, such as this R20. And we have to make this R20 as permanent forum of all G20s in the futures. Why? It is because to realize inclusive economic growth and foster tolerance among religious devotees. Remember, the economy is not about metrics and valuations. It is about people's prosperity and the planet's continuity while maintaining world peace through forging global solidarity and partnership. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Chairman Rasjid, for your powerful and practical talk. Our final speaker for this afternoon's panel is Professor Alberto Maloni. Professor Alberto Maloni is the Secretary of the Foundation for Religious Studies and UNESCO Chair on Religious Pluralism and Peace. Professor Maloni, as I said, holds the UNESCO Chair on Religion, Pluralism and Peace, and this is at the University of Bologna. He is also Chair of History of Christianity at Unimore in Italy. He is an Italian national with a PhD in Religious Studies. He is also the Scientific Coordinator of the EU. He is the founder of the European Academy of Religion and General Editor of Corpus Christianorum. He is the member of the board of several journals, and he is also the Chief Scientific Advisor of the European Union and has been since 2020. Welcome, Professor Maloni.
Thank you very much. Maybe I will. Okay. Di qua. Bene. Buonasera, grazie. Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you to the government of Indonesia for hosting this R20. Last year from Bologna, we had handover with Pacchiaia of this event, President Mario Draghi, the President of the Italian Presidency, the Patriarch Bartholomew, Professor Prodi, David Sassoli, the late President of the European Parliament, Ronald Lauder, the President of the World Jewish Congress, and 600 authorities made this handover, and you are happy to see that our hope are fulfilled, and if the eye had been moved from the left to the right, becoming from if 20 and R20. I will speak as a historian, and so I will said my argument from this point of view. I'm not a religious leader, I'm not a leader, and if I be religious enough will be decided in the last day, and I hope in the mercy of God for that. Interfaith dialogue is a crucial part of diplomatic, academic, international agendas, with different genealogies and different goals. And it has become customary in the past 2 decades at least to use an argument concerning interfaith dialogue. It is an argument that peace is the true use of religion, violence is the abuse of religion. This is a truthful and noble approach controlled by public and growing consensus, thanks God, and capable to ensure a place to peace in our future. However, the historian must say that facts induce us to a certain prudence around that, because history is there to tell us that religious belief have an intact power of feeding violence or fostering peace. Of course, religion is not only the danger that humanity is facing. We know from the past experience that other ideologies has been part of the great danger, but religion are now in a crucial point, in a point that I call a religious climate change. We all know what is the climate change at the global level, but we also know that there is a change in the climate of religion. There is a global warming in temperature of religion. The ideology of purity, as President Macron called it in a recent strategic meeting in Rome, is feeding violent people and groups, and the cynicism using money to fund religious war here and there in the world is not decreasing but growing. There is an indicator of violence that we are studying, that is the violence perpetrated in the places of prayer. We started in Bologna and Palermo to work on this because there is a point that already impressed me in the Bible. This is Viligelmo in Modena 12:10. That is the murder of Cain and Abel. That is there to say to us that in front of the altar, fraternity and fratricide starts together. And so we know that in our past history we have something that calls us from a common mourning, that is not only the violence perpetrated in the name of God by the abusers, but mostly the violence perpetrated in the places of prayer. Since 9 October 82, the date of a Palestinian attack to a Roman synagogue in which a boy of 2 years old, Stefano Taché, was killed, up to now, we have counted more than 2,000 of crimes with dozens of thousands of victims, and these victims demand to us a common mourning in order to be recalled and remembered as part of the tragedy and the hope that we bring into the international arena. To fight against the religious climate change and its consequence, the world needs goodwill, good leaders, good politics, good meetings, and I think also good research. And in this good research, the interfaith attitude and the inter-religious dialogue are a proper tool with, as used in the past, two instruments. One is the idea of seeking what unites as opposed to what divides us. Is the approach of Immanuel Kant, the Zum ewige Frieden, and it has produced the idea that religion are called to find ethical foundation to shared values. But for the people who speak Latin, values is a very dangerous word, because value is the price in money that you have to pay for something you buy. And so I prefer virtue, but this is the Latin paranoia, if you want. The other approach that is less used, it represented by an idea of Simone Weil in 1941. Each religion alone is true. That is to say that at the moment that we are thinking on it, we must bring as much attention to bear on as if it were nothing else. It is in the same way each landscape, each picture, each poem, each artwork is alone beautiful. A synthesis of religion implies a lower quality of attention. An higher quality of attention means so to find the way to go beyond what has been done. In the past decades of interfaith dialogue, we have seen that for many times the same first mile have been done, returning always to that starting point, repeating more or less the same argument. And so what we have to ask is, what is the second mile that goes beyond what we are doing? The second mile, from the point of view of the historian, is represented on one side of the very crowded market of interfaith dialogue. There is much room for delegitimizing violence, and this is a blessing, but the point is that there is something that can go beyond a peaceful and a peace-producing rhetoric. There is a joke that they use in some of the conferences like this, that is that to have a conference in which people say that true lions are vegetarians is useless. Lions are not vegetarians, and the people of faith, the human being, for those who have read Augustine, are not vegetarians, are dangerous. And so to curb violence, you don't need to say that true lions are vegetarian. You need to reflect on the theological basis, on a historical basis, on a political basis. So you have to take a responsibility. There is a ceremony in the this is Cain and Abel. Tiziana will go faster than expected. There is a ceremony in the rite of Shabbat, that is the name of Avdallah, is the moment separating the Shabbat from the profane time. It uses the same verb, separate, that is used in Genesis for the creation. In the creation, one of the separations that God makes is between the water below and the waters above. And there is an entire discussion in Talmudic wisdom and in patristic theology about what is keeping the waters above, and what is keeping the waters down. And they say, somebody says it is because they obey to the commandment of God, because they say that we're obliged to do this, and the other one says because God gave to them a responsibility. So what we have to work with is exactly this responsibility. We assume this responsibility at the end of one pandemic that we have identified, the pandemic of the COVID-19. But a prayer that was very common for my grandmother said, "A peste, fame et bello libera nos Domine." From the war, the famine, and the pestilence, free us, O Lord. So in Qoumas there is something talking about the healing. And even President Biden, quoting it in the address of the victory of his president, a time to heal is coming. The problem is that in the Bible, the time to heal does not come after the time of pestilence. The time of heal, the time to heal, come after the time of killing. There is a time to kill and the time to heal. And so responsibility is to take very seriously what Cardinal Zuppi in Bologna calls the pandemic of war. What we have suggested is not, therefore, from Bologna to launch a campaign concerning values, but to launch a campaign concerning virtues. And we wrote a little parva carta that we delivered to the 20 leaders in the summit in Rome, a very short statement that is not based on the fact that we can find commonalities among commandments, but we will find commonalities about what we can engage with. Not you shall or you will, but we will. We will not kill each other, we will succor each other, we will forgive each other. Commitments that requires specific condition, but each potential may consider this as implementation. So what? 5 concluding sentences. If interreligious dialogue is the place in which religious leaders repeat a standard opinion in their own words, it's destiny that this will be a useless effort. If theologies are asked to endorse the power of the most powerful ones, bringing their values among the other values, this will ignite rebellion. If religious pluralism is an easy sermon on fraternity to be kindly preached, it will never become a reality. If faith only serves to give motivational support to economic reasons that are at the core of the G20, this will become an empty effort. On the contrary, if faith and belief want to have a credibility that endures, they must adopt penance and truth, knowing that the Almighty knows everything on each of them, knows everything on each of us here, knows our intention. And what the historian knows is that the most powerful sermons, the most powerful prophets are the one who knows that he knows. He knows the sincerity of the sincere one, the ideology of the ideological one, the superficiality of the superficial one, the hope for peace, and the desire of unity in the human family. There is a sentence of Gregory the Great, Divina locia cum legenti crescunt, the word of God grows with the one who reads it, and I hope that the R20 will be a place in which we can read again the truth that has been revealed to us and offer to us a chance to assume our responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Maloney, for that wonderfully profound talk. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to join me to thank our panelists here for this excellent afternoon And I would like to thank you as well for listening.
Our moderator and all speakers, and please remain on stage to receive the token of appreciation. And I would like to invite Mrs. Alisa Wahid to deliver the token of appreciation. One more time, I would love to say to all speakers to remain on stage to receive the token of appreciation. For the first speaker, Ms. Alisa will be delivered to His Excellency Dr. Hamdan Musallam Al-Mazrouei as the Chairman of the Board of Trustees. Once again, for the first token of appreciation, Mrs. Alisa will deliver to Dr. Hamdan Musallam Al-Mazrouei, Chairman of the Board of Trustees. All right, Ms. Alisa again, to deliver the token of appreciation to all the speakers, one by one. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause to our beloved speakers that already share the thought and also important perspective. All right. For the last speaker, deliver the token of appreciation, and now have a photo group sessions. Once again, give a big round of applause to our great speakers. And now Mrs. Alisa also give the certificate as a token of appreciation also to all the speakers for the second panel. All right, now we have the group sessions, photo group sessions. All the photographer to capture the beautiful moment, and give a big round of applause to all our speakers. Thank you very much, and ladies and gentlemen, all the speakers, now you may return to your seat. Now we give the floor to Mr. Timothy.
Al-Mazrouei, good afternoon. We are going to continue, and we are going to expand and deepen our reflections on our theme of identifying and embracing shared civilizational values. And we are going to do that through a very profound voice from the land of India, from someone who embodies the highest spiritual and moral values, and someone, if I may say so, embodies the highest aspirations of the R20. This is because the individual I'm going to introduce combines in his very person the profound spirituality, a great depth of scholarship and analysis, and a heart of love and gentleness and compassion. It is my great honor to introduce His Holiness Swamiji Bhadresh Das. Swamiji is a great scholar of Sanskrit. I've also learned that he is a great scholar of logic, of philosophy, of epistemology in the Indian classical tradition. And he is also an ordained monk of the Boshasa Nanwasi Akshar Purushottam Swaminarayan Sanstha, or BAPS for short. In 2017, Swami Bhadresh Dasji completed the Swaminarayan Bhashyam, a 5-volume classical Sanskrit commentary on Hinduism's 3 canonical texts, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Brahma Sutras. As a great spiritual teacher and a profound scholar, he is the head of the BAPS Swaminarayan Research Institute at Akshardham in New Delhi, India. And I'm delighted to introduce and to invite to the stage Swami Bhadresh Das to deliver reflections on our theme of identifying and embracing shared spiritual values. Namaste, Swamiji. Welcome.
ईशावास्यमिदं सर्वं यत्किञ्च जगत्यां जगते तेन त्यक्तेन भुञ्जिताः मा गृधः कस्य स्विद्धनम्. Everything and everyone within this entire creation is pervaded by the divine presence of God, our Creator. Rejoice in surrendering unto Him. It we all belong to Him, so covet not what is another's. Ishavasya Upanishad. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvisha vahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we progress together. May we be nourished together. May we grow stronger together. May we excel together. May we never quarrel with one another. May there prevail peace, peace, and peace. Yajurveda. Om Aksharamaham Purushottamadaso'smi. May I attain the divine virtues of Akshar, the enlightened Guru, and serve Purushottama, God Supreme. Mahatah Anandasya Gauravasya cha Vishayoyam Yad iha Indonesia deshe Bali nagare Vinshati deshanam Shikhar Sammelane Sakala Vishwa Vidharana Prabhu Dharmopi Mahata Gauravena सर्वजीव हितावहतया विचार विषये समुपस्थापितः समाद्युतश्च नूनं धर्मानुरागिणां धर्ममर्मज्ञानां धर्मानुष्ठानपरायणानां धर्मपरिरक्षण धर्मपरिपोषण धर्मपरिवर्धनप्रवणानां सर्वधर्मसमादृतात्मनां धर्ममर्ममीमांसकानां धर्मसंवादशीलानां धर्मगौरवविवर्धनतत्पराणां विविधधर्मधुरन्धराणां धर्मो रक्षति रक्षितः इति उक्तिम् अन्वर्थां कुर्वाणानां यतो धर्मस्ततो जयः इति धर्मविभवश्रद्धाविभूषितानां तत्र भवतां चरणेषु वैदिकसनातनधर्मकिङ्करोऽयं साधुभद्रेशदासः प्रणामाञ्जलिं समर्पयति। सर्वेभ्यो नमो नमः। Let's reach out to extend the circle of global harmony. Respected divine souls of this blessed earth, fellow pilgrims of peace and seekers of truth, my humble greetings to the divine presence within each and every one of you. My special appreciation also to Kyai Haji Yaha Cholil's Takaf, to Sheikh Mohamed bin Abdul Karim Alisa, and to the organizers for inviting me to address this esteemed summit. This R20 summit reminds me of the inspiring words spoken at the United Nations Millennium World Peace Summit in New York City. My Guru, His Holiness Pramukh Swami Maharaj, the fifth spiritual successor of Bhagwan Swaminarayan, and whose centennial birth anniversary is being celebrated this year, he shared a universal message for global peace and interfaith harmony. He said, at this hour in human history, we religious leaders should not dream of only one religion in the world, but dream a world where all religions are one and united. Unity in diversity is the lesson of life. This summit is another opportunity for celebrating such rich multi-religious diversity. Friends, I wish to elaborate upon the value of diversity through two analogies. Number one, imagine a garden, a beautiful garden with flora and fauna of every species, creating a kaleidoscopic landscape, rich in assorted colors, fragrances, and songs. Now imagine the whole world is a garden, a beautiful, diverse garden, where every faith, culture, and race blooms in symbiotic harmony with each other. Upon arriving here in Indonesia, especially at this summit, I feel as if I am pleasantly strolling through a beautiful garden of religious and cultural diversity, just as I was in India. How pertinent then is it that this summit is being hosted in Indonesia, whose very motto is Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, University in Diversity. Yes, friends, yes, we are different, yet we are one. One human race, one family, at one home. Just as the ancient Rig Veda proclaims, Yatra Vishwam Bhavati Ekanidam Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadanti. A second analogy, imagine an orchestra, different instruments, different roles, different sounds, yet each one playing in perfect harmony with others, creating a wonderful, joyful symphony. And this is the power of celebrating diversity. My dear friends, I draw your attention now to a universal definition of dharma. When we delve deeper into each faith, we find such universal aspects that transcend gender and geography, race and rank. In Hinduism, dharma has been a topic of profound discussion and contemplation for millennia. For example, the Purva Mimamsa Darshan, a school of thought dedicated to the philosophy of action, begins with Athato Dharma Jigyasa. Now, therefore, we inquire into dharma. Vaisheshika Darshana, another school of classical Indian philosophy, begins similarly with Athato Dharmam Vyakhyasyaamaha. Now, therefore, we define dharma. The very next aphorism offers a universal definition of dharma. Yataha abhyudaya nishreyasa siddhihi sadharmaha. Dharma is that which elevates in this world and beyond. This is known as Sanatan Dharma or eternal dharma. Such a universal dharma for humans is rooted in universal human values, values such as peace, love, friendship, respect, and compassion. If we take each value in turn, peace in Hinduism is profusely exalted. Vedic prayers, such as the Shanthi part, invoke universal peace across all aspects of creation. They often conclude with the calling, Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. Love is also emphasized as a defining quality of religion. His Holiness Pramukh Swami Maharaj used to say, Paraspar Priti Prasarave Te Dharma. True religion is that which fosters mutual love. Another invaluable value is friendship. We hear a song of universal friendship among the Yajurved chants. Mitrasya ma chakshusha sarvani bhutani samikshantam. Mitrasyaham chakshusha sarvani bhutani samikshe. Mitrasya chakshusha samiksha mahe. May I see all beings with an eye of friendship. May all beings see me with an eye of friendship. May we all see each other with an eye of friendship. Avoiding violence and hatred are also essential for resolving conflict peacefully and fostering religious harmony. In chapter 12, Srimad Bhagavad Gita illuminates, they who hate no one and are friendly, forgiving, and compassionate to everyone are true devotees of God. Adveshta sarvabhutanam maitraha karuna evacha. Bhagavan Swaminarayan also propounded dharma as a grounded in noble conduct and inspired a fellowship that lived by such universal values. Friends, when empowered by these universal meanings and values of dharma, we too will be able to truly serve our own faith as well as global family of faiths. Because then we are able to accept the existence of other faiths. Because then we are able to accept the existence of other faiths, accept them as they are, without needing to discriminate or disparage. Because then there can be mutual respect among faiths, respect of human dignity and spiritual integrity, without inciting hurt or hate. Because then we can learn from one another, learn all that is good and noble without ourselves feeling inadequate or insecure. Interfaith harmony does not require that one relinquish or relax one's faith, but rather that we grow stronger within it. And as we grow stronger in our own faith in God, we become more accepting of His loving, all-pervading presence in others. I thus wholeheartedly thank and commend the organizers of this groundbreaking summit for affording us this valuable opportunity to dialogue freely with each other, to learn from one another, to grow closer together. Together we are stronger. Together we move faster. Together we climb higher. I believe such meetings, not just large and grand, but also small and simple, play an integral role in facilitating dialogue, samvada, and fostering harmony. When conducted with noble intentions, with love, courage, and humility, such sincere dialogue can yield priceless rewards. In Hinduism, dialogue, samvada, dialogue has been emphasized since Vedic times as a fundamental human virtue. Dialogue is a fundamental human virtue. The Rig Veda sings, Sangachadvam, Samvadadvam, Samvo Manamsi Janatam. I regard these divine words as a universal hymn of harmony, which translated means, may we all progress together in harmony. May we all speak together in one voice. May all our minds be one in agreement. In conclusion, friends, I would like to say, let us celebrate religious diversity. Let us endeavor to understand the universality of religion. Let us become empowered by universal values of religion by loving love, respecting respect, befriending friendship, and learning to learn from each other. May we continue to convene and deepen our dialogue in the service of global religious harmony. I would like to end with the inspiring words of my Guru, His Holiness Mahant Swami Maharaj, the sixth spiritual successor of Bhagwan Swaminarayan. He says, in the spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the whole world is one family. He says, in the spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, let's reach out to extend the circle of global harmony. I repeat, let's reach out to extend the circle of global harmony. Bineka Tungalika, Bineka Tungalika, Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. Thank you.
We would like to invite Mr. Najib Askar to deliver the token of appreciation. Again, I would like to invite Mr. Ubaidillah to give the token of appreciation. Ladies and gentlemen, give a big round of applause. And we will have a photo session. And also give the certificate. All right, a moment, we will capture this beautiful moment with this photographer. Thank you very much. Mr. Ubaidillah, you can come back to your seat. Ladies and gentlemen, we will continue to the next session with the keynote address. Let us welcome Archbishop Bashar Matiwarda, Glendon Catholic Church.